Imagine you are a doctor, not a surgeon, not a specialist, just a general practitioner with basic surgical training. One morning in July, a colleague knocks on your door. They are pale. Their abdomen is rigid. Their pulse is elevated. You examine them, and you already know what it is. Appendicitis. In any city on Earth, this is a 30-minute ambulance ride and a routine surgery. Here, it is something else entirely. Because outside the window, it is minus 62 degrees Celsius. The nearest aircraft that could reach you is 4,000 kilometers away. And even if one could be dispatched, the weather conditions make landing impossible. You are it. You are the only medical option this person has. You scrub in, alone, in a room that was never designed as an operating theater, and you begin. This is not a hypothetical. This happened at a Soviet Antarctic research station in 1961, when a doctor named Leonid Rogozov performed an appendectomy on himself, using mirrors and the assistance of two untrained colleagues, because there was simply no other option. And it captures, in a single story, what Antarctic winter over actually is. A situation where the normal rules of what is possible and what is not have been quietly suspended, and the people inside must find a way to function anyway. Today we are going inside the Antarctic research station in winter, and by the end you will understand why the engineers and psychologists who study these places say the same thing every time. The cold, they say, is the easy part. Let's start with the physical reality, because until you understand what Antarctic winter actually is, the engineering response to it makes no sense. Antarctica in winter is not simply cold and dark. It is a category of environment that has no real equivalent anywhere else on Earth. Temperatures at inland stations like the Russian Vostok station regularly drop below minus 60 degrees Celsius. At those temperatures, exposed skin freezes in under a minute. Metal becomes brittle. Diesel fuel gels. Rubber seals crack. Aircraft cannot safely land or take off. The combination of extreme cold, complete darkness, and the impossibility of emergency evacuation means that from approximately February to October each year, the small crew that stays behind, typically between 15 and 50 people depending on the station, is completely and totally cut off from the rest of the world. There are no resupply flights. There are no medical evacuations for anything short of a life-threatening emergency, and even those are extraordinarily rare and dangerous. If something breaks, the people inside must fix it. If someone gets sick, the station's doctor is the only option, a reality that makes the story of Leonid Rogozov not an anomaly, but a concentrated version of the truth that every winter-over crew carries with them. The station must be entirely self-sufficient for 8 months, and every single system inside it must be designed to that standard. The engineering challenge of keeping a modern Antarctic research station alive through winter is one of the most demanding in the world. The primary heating system must maintain habitable temperatures inside, while the outside air sits at minus 60, meaning the thermal differential across the building envelope can exceed 80 degrees Celsius. This requires insulation systems that are orders of magnitude more robust than anything needed in civilian construction, combined with heating systems that have multiple redundant backups, because a heating failure at those temperatures is fatal within hours. Power generation faces similar challenges. Most stations run on diesel generators, but diesel at extreme cold has to be kept constantly warm to prevent it gelling in the fuel lines. The generators themselves must run continuously, because allowing them to cool down and restart in extreme cold risks catastrophic mechanical failure. Water comes from melting snow and ice, which requires constant energy input. Waste systems must handle human waste in a sealed environment with no external disposal option. Communications are limited and often unreliable during the Antarctic winter because of ionospheric interference, leaving satellite communication as the only reliable link to the outside world, and even that is intermittent at the extreme southern latitudes where many stations are located. The modern engineering response to these challenges has produced some remarkable innovations. The British Halley 6 research station, completed in 2012, is built on hydraulic legs that can be raised as snow accumulates, preventing the building from being buried over successive winters. Its modules are designed to be relocatable, allowing the entire station to be physically moved if the ice shelf it sits on becomes unstable. The German Neumayer 3 station uses a similar elevated design, sitting on a steel platform supported by adjustable pylons above the ice surface. The American Amundsen Scott South Pole Station is built on a raised platform with aerodynamic shaping designed to prevent snow from accumulating against the structure. These are not aesthetic choices. They are survival choices. In Antarctica, the environment is actively trying to bury, crush, and freeze every structure humans place on it. And the engineering must anticipate that pressure across decades, not just seasons. But here is where the engineering story ends and the human story begins. And it is the human story that defines what winter over actually is. Have you ever wondered what happens to a person when they have not seen natural sunlight for 2 months? The human body runs on a biological clock synchronized primarily by light. When light disappears entirely, that clock begins to drift. Sleep patterns shift, appetite changes, mood cycles in ways that feel disconnected from any external cause. This is not a psychological weakness. It is a physiological response to an environment that the human body was never designed to inhabit. In the perpetual darkness of Antarctic winter, the pineal gland, which regulates melatonin production and is directly triggered by light levels, loses its primary input signal. Circadian rhythms, the deep biological cycles that govern energy, alertness, and emotional regulation, begin to destabilize. Crew members report that their sleep cycles drift later and later, by an hour or 2 each week, until some people are sleeping through what the station clock calls daytime and awake during what it calls night, regardless of the artificial lighting schedule. Beyond the circadian disruption, researchers have documented a cluster of psychological and behavioral changes in Antarctic winter-over crews that has become known informally as winter-over syndrome. The symptoms include cognitive slowing, sometimes called the polar T3 syndrome because early researchers suspected a connection to thyroid hormone levels, which can drop in extreme cold and darkness. Irritability increases. Minor interpersonal conflicts that would be trivial in normal life become disproportionately significant when the same 15 people are confined together with no escape for months. Motivation drops. A phenomenon researchers call the third quarter effect describes a reliable dip in crew morale and performance that occurs approximately 3/4 of the way through the winter isolation period, when the initial novelty has long worn off, but the end is not yet close enough to feel real. Station managers and psychologists who study these populations have identified this as the most dangerous period of the winter over, when interpersonal tensions peak and the risk of serious conflict or psychological crisis is highest. The medical dimension of winter over adds another layer of pressure that is rarely discussed outside the research community. The station doctor during a winter over is not simply responsible for treating illnesses. They are the only medical professional within thousands of kilometers, responsible for everything from dental emergencies to mental health crises to the kind of surgical intervention that Leonid Rogozov performed on himself. Modern winter over doctors receive crash training in surgical procedures they would never be expected to perform in a normal clinical setting. They carry equipment and medications chosen specifically for the scenarios most likely to arise in an isolated cold environment. And they face a unique professional challenge. They are not only the doctor, but also a member of the same small social group they are responsible for monitoring. Identifying early signs of psychological deterioration in colleagues who are also their daily social contacts, without creating alarm or stigma in a fragile community, requires a kind of professional judgment that no medical school specifically trains for. The response to these challenges has been a decades-long project of deliberate social engineering. Modern Antarctic stations are not just buildings. They are carefully designed social environments, built around research into what keeps small, isolated groups psychologically functional. The physical layout of newer stations creates semi-private spaces where individuals can withdraw from the group, because constant and forced togetherness is one of the fastest routes to social breakdown. Lighting systems in modern stations use full-spectrum artificial lighting that mimics the intensity and color temperature of natural daylight, programmed to shift across the day in patterns that reinforce the body's circadian rhythms even in the absence of actual sunlight. Regular structured activities, movie nights, themed dinners, amateur radio contacts with the outside world are scheduled specifically to give the winter over calendar a rhythm that prevents the weeks from blurring into an undifferentiated gray stretch of time. Food plays a role that most people outside these programs never consider. In isolated extreme environments, The quality, variety, and social ritual of food becomes a primary driver of psychological well-being. Antarctic stations go to significant lengths to maintain food quality and variety through winter, including maintaining large frozen stores of high-quality ingredients, preserving the tradition of elaborate Sunday meals, and celebrating every possible holiday or birthday with special food. The act of gathering around a shared meal is understood not as a luxury, but as a critical psychological maintenance activity. Station managers report that the morale impact of a particularly good meal can sustain a crew through days of difficult technical work, while a period of monotonous or poor quality food correlates reliably with rising tension and declining performance. The selection process for winter-over crew is one of the most rigorous psychological screening processes in the world. Candidates are evaluated not just for technical competence, but for specific psychological profiles associated with successful long-duration isolation. Researchers have found that the personality traits that predict success in Antarctic winter-over are somewhat counterintuitive. High achievement, Type A personalities, the driven, goal-oriented individuals who excel in most competitive professional environments, often struggle in the unstructured, confined, socially intense world of winter-over. What predicts success is a different profile. Emotional stability, flexibility, tolerance for ambiguity, low need for external validation, and crucially, the ability to find meaning and satisfaction in small, routine tasks. The person who thrives in an Antarctic winter is someone who can spend 8 months in a confined space with the same 15 people, in total darkness, doing largely repetitive maintenance work, and find that genuinely acceptable rather than unbearable. And here is what that means the next time you see a photograph of an Antarctic research station in winter: a small cluster of lit windows in absolute blackness, surrounded by nothing for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. That light is not just the glow of a building staying warm. It is the product of dozens of interlocking engineering systems running without interruption, sustained by a small team of people who were selected specifically for their ability to hold themselves and each other together in one of the most psychologically extreme environments a human being can voluntarily enter. Somewhere in that building, a doctor is hoping they never have to do what Leonid Rogozov did. And the cold, in the end, really is the easy part. If you want more deep dives into the hidden systems and the people keeping the most extreme places on Earth running, subscribe. What's coming next will be even more interesting.